Charlotte, the 49ers fire their coach, Will Healy, after a 1-7 start. Will Healy was hired in 2019. He comes in, brings Charlotte to a bowl against University of Buffalo. They do lose that bowl. They were 7-6 that year. 2020, obviously COVID year. You can't really credit or blame anyone for that year or any kind of performances. Half of their games were canceled. Charlotte was just one of those teams that was caught in the crossfire multiple times. So let's just call that one a wash. Last season wasn't very fun for them. And then obviously this year they start off 1-7. This one hurts in a little bit for me, Steve. Some compared to some of these other coaches we've seen, this is the first group of 5 firing that we've seen. This is the second opening technically, because UAB does have an interim coach since the summer. But Charlotte is the first firing for a group of 5 coach with Will Healy here. The reason it hurts me is because I do feel like he's a great coach. I just feel like he was set up for really no success. He didn't have a big salary to begin with, right? Now, that is probably a benefit to him initially, because that probably helped maybe some other candidates not come in. But he's a culture builder. I really think he does have that opportunity to do so.
Absolutely.
And with that being said, I think he had the opportunity to really try and develop that. We saw some really good progress in 2019. COVID just hit him hard. And with the big transfer portal beginning, I think Charlotte really took a hit. I think this team and this program is a very attractive one, though. So although I do feel for Will Healy, I think he's going to find a job very quickly. I know his buyout's about $1.5 billion, which is pretty huge, to be honest, for a team like Charlotte. I don't think that Charlotte's going to pay the full amount of that, because I do feel like he'll find at least a coordinator job with a Power 5 school. I do think that he is very a good add to whatever kind of school wants to grab him. Again, a culture builder. You put him on a Power 5 school, put him as a coordinator, probably get paid more than he did at Charlotte to do less and maybe focus more on the recruiting side of the house. But I do think this Charlotte job is very attractive. One, the location. We know this. We talk baseball all the time on in the past, not on SlasherU, but with Slasher Sports. You and I have talked baseball. Charlotte's a very attractive community for all sports. Charlotte might be one of the teams that gets an expansion for professional baseball. But talking about Charlotte in the college football aspect, this team is moving to the American, which is a step up from Conference USA. That means that they're probably going to have to pay their new coach a little more. Charlotte is a football town already with the Carolina Panthers. They're very close to a hub like Atlanta. This is just a really good area. And I think that moving up from Conference USA to the American with a team that needs a program builder, because that's exactly where they're going to need, even though Will Healy, I think, brought a good culture, they still need to build up this program because of what happened with the transfer portal. They really are. There's a reason they're 1-7. It wasn't bad coaching. It was this team needs some work. So I think there's going to be some great candidates, but what's your overall thoughts here about the firing and how this job looks?
I was very surprised, even with the 1-7 record. I was really surprised that they let him go. I think Charlotte's a great destination. It's a great campus. The facilities, they've been upgrading them since they restarted football. I mean, again, it's a relatively new program considering college football as a whole. But I really question if the administration is as all in on this as you seem to think they are. It's just little things that this firing just gave me. You sit back and say, there's got to be more to this than just, oh, well, you're 1-7. Now, admittedly, they all got off to a pretty decent start last year, lost their last 3 games. And now you're 1-7. So, we're going to a new conference. Are you really going to find a coach that's going to be able to turn things around as quickly as Will Healy could have done? I mean, you remember that he came from Austin Peay, and that was a program that went 1-10 and then 0-11, and 2 years later, they had a winning record. And they were in a tough FCS conference, and he turned things around. I don't think he really was given the support that perhaps he needed. And I think that played to a degree. Players picked that up. It's one of those subtle things when you see players leaving a school, you're like, why would so many guys leave the school? I have a good coach, whatever it is. It's not the coach. It's generally where what they see as, okay, is this a hopeless situation, or is the administration really behind us, or whatever? I think that played as much into the transfer portal as the whole COVID situation did. I mean, Charlotte was one of those programs that, okay, yes, I mean, they were in an area that was heavy hit by COVID, but they were also a program that it was easy to cancel a game against Charlotte as far as an out of conference game, because they're not an upper echelon Power 5 school that's going to get you a big payday.
Very valid point. All right. So with that being said, there are probably some other jobs within the Conference USA, basically those teams, especially those teams, I should say, that are going to move over to the American Athletic Conference that might have some new coaching changes. Obviously, Charlotte's one of them. UAB, as I mentioned before, it's already open with the interim coach, Bryant Vincent, already being in place. But there's a possibility like FAU and Rice also being some of those new contenders, and maybe even North Texas. I don't think that's really the case. I think North Texas is doing a pretty good job, but there's a potential that could be in the thought as well. Looking at that, Steve, I do think there are some pretty decent names that could get in the mix, and I do think it's because of that Charlotte area. That's really why I do point at a few of them. The first one that comes to my mind right off the bat is Pep Hamilton. We saw Pep Hamilton. He's a Charlotte native. We've seen him as he's the offensive coordinator for the Houston Texans right now, but he did a fantastic job in, what was it, the XFL or
Yes,
USFL, XFL, right?
XFL.
Yeah, with these so many different leagues in the last couple of years. But yeah, he did a fantastic job there. I mean, that's why he's back with Houston. Being a Charlotte native, I think he could do a pretty good job there. We did see him work under Harbaugh and Shaw when he was with Stanford, right? So he does have college experience at the pretty high level, too. Stanford, during the Harbaugh and Shaw era, has been a pretty good recruiting destination. I know Stanford's not having a good year this year, but in the generalness to it, I think Pep Hamilton would be pretty good. There's a couple other names that I like as well. One that really does pop in my mind is a FCS guy, and you just talked about that's what they did in the first place, bringing him in from Austin P. Well, what about a guy, the head coach from Campbell? I do think that that's a possibility too. Mike Minter, he's the head coach. He's also a former Carolina Panther.
Right there.
Okay, so he has been with Campbell for about a decade. I know he doesn't have a winning record with them, but the fact that he has that kind of feeling, right, with Charlotte could make that step up. Does Charlotte take that route? That's my question. Do they take the route to go to FCS again to get that career builder, that program builder, or do they try and reach for, hey, we're going to a new conference, let's go big. Let's try to get someone from the NFL like a Pep Hamilton, or let's try to get one of these, maybe these Power 5 coaches that just were released and try to get them to lead our team. We've seen that happen with some of the other group of 5 teams lately, like, for example, Clay Hilton, right? Clay Hilton is doing a fantastic job at Georgia Southern. Does Charlotte take that route? I'm really interested to see what happens, but right now I do see maybe a Pep Hamilton. I'm really leaning towards some kind of Charlotte relationship is where they're going to lean. That's where I do think is going to happen.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of Pep Hamilton, and that is such a great road to lead down. I mean, right, he is the ideal guy. I don't know that if they go back to the FCS route, though. Again, with Mentor, okay, he does have ties, to the community. He didn't get Campbell over the hump, all puns intended.
I mean, that's true, though. Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
I like
yeah,
that hump, yeah.
yeah. So they are the Campbell Camels, in case you didn't know that out there, guys. But I think they have to go. I don't want to say big name. I think they have to go FBS coach. They must feel that they have to make a splash to be relevant, on the football landscape. Again, not a Power 5 conference, but I'm still trying to wrap my mind around that. And then I think Healy's going to end up somewhere where a coach, let's say West Point. There's a lot of talk of their coach moving on. I can see Healy going in there. He would fit well into that kind of a landscape, where you develop a system, you accept your limitations, and then you just exploit that system the best that you can, keeping people off balance. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at Georgia Tech. I mean, I know there's a lot more bigger names at Georgia Tech, but again, you kept hammering that nail. Culture builder, program builder. There are so many FBS schools out there that need that drastic overhaul. And I don't think Healy backs down from a challenge. I would love to see how this plays out and how the explanations come out. I mean, I'm really fascinated by this. I'm still perplexed as to why this firing happened.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be performance. There's no doubt about that. And obviously, moving into the American, they have a lot of high expectations. And I don't blame them one bit whatsoever because this is a step up. I mean, in my mind, with this new American, with what they're bringing into it, I do think that this is going to be the closest to a Power Five conference without being a Power Five conference. I think the Sun Belt has that right now, with the American battling for it. But I think that the American is really going to take running from that with that. Even though they are losing a few to the Big 12, I think what they brought in is still going to, I think, might take the tippy top over the Sun Belt. I would love to say that he is going to be in the running for some of these coaching jobs like Georgia Tech, Will Healy. I just don't see that. I don't see him getting fired from a 1-7 group of 5 team and then being in the running for a Power 5 school, even though Georgia Tech or Colorado is been one of those rough teams in the Power 5. I just don't see it. I think that we're going to see Will Healy probably as a coordinator in a Power 5 conference. I could see that happen. Or if he wants to take the head coaching route, he might have to jump down the FCS for a few years to build that back up. I just feel like that's how the majority of programs are going to see his performance. Hopefully they don't, because we know that he is a good culture builder. We saw what happened before that in 2019, how they were. We'll see if that's the case moving forward. Regardless, though, I think that's where we're going to see Will Healy, either a head coach in the FCS level or a coordinator position in a Power 5 level.